Traction is the only farm management solution uniquely built for the cloud, integrating actual accounting numbers with field operations, resulting in real-time financial analysis for timely and informed decision-making. Traction delivers with that the most extensive farm-specific accounting suite of capabilities in a cloud application, and allows users to automatically and easily maintain inventory balances for crops, supplies, track cost of production, and field level profitability, providing crucial insights and valuable time savings. Company's majority employee and farmer owned business, and leverage integration with FieldView JD Ops Center to automate and ease the collection of those field activities. And like I said earlier, we have Brian Stark on the one hand with us, who is part of the co-founders and their marketing director, and Brian Watkins, so himself a farmer customer of Traction and the CEO of Cropzilla. But for more extensive intros, I'll pass it to you so the group knows who you are, and then would leave it to you to run us through the presentation. And I'll monitor the chat and manage the Q&A then later on. So without further ado, Brian, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Mark, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
All right, very good. You can see my slide deck?
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic. So welcome everyone. My name is Brian Stark, one of the co-founders of Traction. And so I grew up on a family farm in Northwest Ohio. And after college, went to work for a company called FarmWorks Software. There I spent quite a bit of my time in sales and marketing. That company just really took off in the 1990s and 2000s. When I started, we had a couple thousand farmers using that product, and it was, I think when it was all done, it was like over 30,000. So it was quite a ride, and a lot of experience gained from that experience with FarmWorks. And so we're excited to tell our story about TractionAg and really the evolution of desktop software to cloud-based and how it could really change and impact your life. Right?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brian Watkins. I farm in Northwest Ohio, and with my family, we raise corn, soybeans, some wheat, and some hogs, and that's my main gig. But I also have been very involved in software as well on my own. But of course, for our business, we're longtime FarmWorks users, and now we've moved over to Traction, and so we're very deep into Traction as a very important part of our financial management on our farm. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that later.
Yeah, so I think maybe what's important, just kind of kick things off, is really just talk about, who is TractionAg. Most of you on the call may have never heard of us before. So the core team, there's 3 co-founders. So we have many, many years of experience in farm software. As I stated, FarmWorks Software is kind of where it all started from. And we did a lot of research before we started TractionAg, just kind of took a look at the industry as a whole to see, as far as farm accounting goes, there's really not a lot of options out there other than QuickBooks Online. If we're looking for a true cloud-based farm accounting system, there's just not a lot out there. But we did our due diligence, did a lot of research, and that's really what we came down to, was there's really still a big need for farm accounting and tracking those accounting numbers back to fields and crops and tracking your true cost per acre, margin per bushel. With that said, one of the things that we really want to hang our hat on is data privacy, and making sure that anyone who uses Traction can feel safe to know that your data is not used against you in any way. It's your information. All we're doing is storing the information so you can get value from it. And so we did take the steps to join the Ag Data Transparency. So we are part of that group, and we're quite excited about that. So if you have any questions about where we stand with data privacy, you can just easily go to their website, and you'll see all of our information out there, pretty easy to look at and understand. One of the things I really want to talk about today, and again, lessons learned from the past, is customer service. So with this product that we designed here, we really want to focus on the customer and making sure that they have complete value and getting what they want out of the software. So from the time you start a trial all the way to you purchase, and after you purchase, you have an account rep side by side with you, working with you, making sure that you're getting data in there. And if you have any questions, do a lot of video conferences if you need those. So it's definitely quite different than back in the desktop days where you might have acquired a piece of software and it was kind of sink or swim. So we do help you along the way getting started. Our team is right with you to help set up your accounts and get things going. And so of all the great things that we're going to talk about today, I think this customer service piece is one of the most important things that we can talk about. And so with that said, just want to give you a quick timeline here of our history of where TractionAg started. And as you know, when COVID was impacting us back in March of 2020, just before that is when we started TractionAg. So there was 5 of us in a room, and we just our heads down, and we knew the type of product that we wanted to design, and we just went for it. And we are employee owned, and so we do have some investors, and most of those are farmers that are investing to us. But we just started from the ground up, writing software, which is what we had to do anyways, because this is a completely different animal compared to the desktop world. And we did launch our very first product in January of 2021 called Basic Accounting. Basic Accounting is it's a nice system just to kind of get your feet wet with accounting. It's cash accounting. It does have some field profitability reporting, Schedule F, checkbook register. It's just a way to kind of get you into the accounting, get you using something other than maybe QuickBooks that is based on farms and tracking your costs. After that, we did release the operations. So basic operations, be able to connect to climate and do field record keeping, manage your equipment and those sorts of things. All these different pieces integrate together. So that's kind of what we're known for. And those are the kind of things we did at FarmWorks as well. Payroll for a lot of farms is a pain point. And so we launched the payroll in January of 2022. That's been going great. We have quite a few farmers on that, and it's an end-to-end complete solution, meaning that it handles all your taxes, does the tax payments, does your W-2s, everything. So it's quite different, even from if you had FarmWorks software in the past. It's quite a bit different of an animal compared to that. But what we're going to be talking about today, a little more in depth, is our integration with Climate FieldView and also the John Deere Operations Center. They both kind of work the same in terms of how it brings it into TractionAg. But that was launched in April of 2022. We made that announcement, and so we're quite excited about bringing in field records into TractionAg from Climate FieldView. From there, what do you do with it? And that's what we're going to show you here today. A big announcement in November was our granular business software acquisition. That's not Granular Insights. We have a lot of questions about that. We didn't acquire the entire granular product line. It was just the granular business software, which is the field operations piece. So they do a lot of great things. And that is still today a standalone product that we hope to kind of slowly merge into our business software that we'll be talking about today. But it does a lot of great things. If you might know somebody using the granular business software. We call it Traction Enterprise. It's just a name change, but it does a lot of great crop planning, work orders, grain marketing, that kind of stuff. And here just recently, we launched the advanced accounting, which we'll talk about a little bit today, doing accounts payable, accounts receivables, accrual accounting, all these different things that I'm talking about integrate together into one system, but you can kind of piecemeal it out if you choose to go that direction. So why TractionAg? As I stated before, we did a lot of research in QuickBooks. There's a lot of farmers use QuickBooks. There's nothing wrong with QuickBooks, other than it's just not really designed for farmers. And so if you've tried using it, I think you found out pretty quickly that there's a lot of great reports you can get out of it. But when it comes down to managing your fields, your crops, and your margins per bushel, and your equipment expenses and things like that, it just falls way short. And so with that, bringing it all together to one system is really what we're all about. That's what farmers want. That's the kind of product that we created here. This system is team driven. So again, thinking back, not too long ago, but even a decade ago, desktop software, everyone had to work off desktop, and it really wasn't team oriented. With this system here, you can invite your team members, your accountants, everybody can work in the same platform. So it makes it quite easy to get data done and work done. And then the key here is just as much software as we have out there today, spreadsheets and whatever it might be you're using, it's not easy trying to find what your actual cost is. And it's just a real challenge for farmers. So that's why we started TractionAg, is to give you that information quickly and easily. This is just a quick screenshot that shows the various companies that we work with. And there's actually this is just a bit of them because there's only a few banks and listed here in the bubbles. But we work with over 12,000 banks and credit cards. Climate FieldView, obviously, John Deere Operations Center, Tax 1099. So we want to be that hub that kind of brings it all together. This is just another screenshot that shows a farmer in the cab. I was in the cab here during planting season this year, and he pulled out his smartphone and he was able to look at his accounting records on the go. So whether it's a smartphone or iPad, we have an app specific for phones, actually, that it's called Traction Mobile, that can work on an iPhone or Android phone. And this way you can get things done no matter where you're at, which is pretty cool. And so what I do now is just hand it over to Brian Watkins, and he's going to talk a little bit about his farm and how they're leveraging climate and traction.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm a user of Traction, and I'm just going to highlight, we're going to show a few screenshots kind of as a launching point for me to talk about Traction, and then later Brian is going to give you much more detail in a demo. So I just want to give you a flavor of where we really find a lot of value in Traction. And there's two things I'm going to talk about. One is around inventory, but it really relates to field level profitability. And then the other is about equipment. And those are two things that are really important to us and things that we're using Traction to do. So this screenshot, this actually gives you an idea of the user experience when data comes in from climate, from our 2020s. We've got 2020s on our planter. We're controlling both seed and fertilizer with them. We have 2020s on our combines, the yield sense. We have yield. We have the now the jumps out of my head, but we have a puck, the yield drive. There you go, puck on our sprayer. So we're getting a lot of data that flows through climate, and it's important to us to bring it in. So as I mentioned, the number one thing that I wanted to talk about was inventory. And we're trying as much as possible to capture inventory via these monitors, do a good job of selecting seed and products that are in them, and then bringing that in as opposed to writing it down, or even a phone, even an app requires potentially more user issues, whereas the monitors are, you have to work with them because they control the equipment. So the data goes into the monitor. It's connected to an iPad. The iPad then uploads it to the cloud, and then in the next morning it shows up in Traction, and we can then use this screen that you're seeing here to verify. And the process is very intuitive in terms of the verification. It's still a necessary step to go through and just make sure that everything is as it should be. And we can go through a lot of fields and a lot of things that way pretty quickly. And now we have, we know what inputs went where. We have our seed and what field it was on, et cetera. And that's, that's really important to us. We certainly want to keep track of that, and it's a challenge. And maybe now's the time to go to the second screen, because once it's in Traction, then this is a screen, and this is actually is 28% nitrogen, but you have this for all the products that you use. And what you've got right at your fingertips is you have all the purchases, and then you have all the uses, all the allocations to the fields based on the machine data. And you know, if you're working hard at it and you keep up with it, it's probably not going to come out perfect, but it's certainly better than back in the days when you would have, you know, buy 500 bags of seed and you could only account for 400 of them. That's not good, right? So here, you know, it's a user-friendly way, flowing. You know, people like to use the word seamlessly. Well, I don't know if I would say that, but it's flowing nicely from the monitor right into our accounting system. And that's the other thing about Traction, is there are other programs that don't have accounting that we've worked with at times that can bring in machine data, but that's a huge limitation, because here you have every purchase, you only have to enter it once, you enter it into your accounting, and it's there as an invoice, as a product coming in, and it just makes so much more sense. And the other thing is tracking cost, right? As you have different, over time, you may be paying different amounts for different products, and it's all, you know, there's an inventory approach within Traction that makes sense to keep track of these costs. So this is, you know, it's a big thing for us, these inputs from the supplier to our warehouse to a truck to the field to the planter or applicator, and then to the cloud and into our management and accounting system. So that's the inventory side. The other thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is machinery. Machinery costs are really important to us to keep track. We've always tried to do a good job of keeping track of spare parts and so forth and assigning them to the machinery so that we know what our our annual and our lifetime costs are for a machine. But also we want to pull together all the other costs associated with that so that we know what our costs are out in the field. And my program Cropzilla is related to that in the sense that it uses telemetry to track all the hours on the machine. But besides the telemetry, we need to know the cost structure, right? And so we can do that and track that in Traction. And this screen here is, I guess this is a planter. And again, you know, if you happen to be the year that you purchased it, the purchase history is going to be there, all the repair bills. If we do the right job of allocating, if there's any other things associated with that planter, insurance and other things like that. Certainly with the machine, you've got fuel that can be allocated, and so we can track the costs of our equipment. And so those things, I mean, there's many more things. Obviously, it's a good accounting package. It does a good job of producing financial statements and so forth. And it is early days for Traction. They've got more things they want to add, but I wanted to highlight the inventory and the machinery as it's not just that it's important to us, but it's a strong reason why we use an ag specific accounting package, because these are the kind of things that are just part of it, as opposed to a QuickBooks or something where we have to, you know, work pretty hard to set up things like equipment and so forth. So that's my story. Brian, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Just to mention one other farmer, this farmer is not here today, but so Ken Hartman is somebody that I've known for 25 plus years. Ken Hartman is very similar to Brian here at Watkins about as far as using FarmWorks software in the past. So that was the same with Ken too. Long time, but what really got him into FarmWorks even was tracking the accounting, right? It all started with the accounting, and that's TractionAg is an accounting first system. So with him, it's all about tracking it back to the fields and tracking inventories as well. But it's somebody who uses Climate FieldView. Actually, there's quite a few people that know who Ken Hartman is. He did win the 2021 Master Farmer Award. So somebody that we actually go to quite often just to bounce some ideas off of. And that's what's nice about having the group of farmers we have, because they are fully vested into what we're doing, because again, there's just not a whole lot of accounting systems out there to pick from, and to have one like this that ties it very well into the operations side is a rarity. So with that said, I do have a demo that I'm going to present to you now. So I'm going to go ahead and just close out this demonstration here and go to my tab. I'm just going to go ahead and click on here, just make sure I didn't get timed out, and it looks pretty good. Okay. Let me go ahead and make it full screen for you. Okay, so what you're looking at here is Traction. So I'm using all the elements of it. I've got the full accounting system. I've got the operations. Also, there's payroll here and agronomy, Probably not going to spend a ton of time on payroll and agronomy today. I'm going to focus more on climate FieldView, field operations, accounting, and those kinds of things. But what you have here is when you first get started in the software, there is this let's get started. So again, using our experiences from the past, trying to make it easy for any farmer to get up and going very quickly. So there's a 3-step process to get started. And so if it takes you more than probably 5 or 10 minutes, you're probably thinking too hard here, because we make it super easy for you to set up your entities in Traction. And so this piece here is very important. FarmWorks and other software systems don't really handle entities very well, but if you've got more than one entity, meaning you got the farm business, maybe you got a trucking business, a land owning business, those are all different sets of books. So with Traction, you can manage as many types of books as you want, any number of them. So personal set of books as well. I've got 3 here that you're looking at today. So I'm going to be showing you some things on my 3 sets of books. The one I'll focus on more though is the Start Farms. That's my key farm that I'm going to be working with today. But there is no limit here. And when you start thinking about QuickBooks Online, they charge you for each of those entities. We don't. So you can have as many there as you want to get rolling with it. There's also a place to get you started with the banks. This option here, I've got my bank connected, which is Huntington Bank. Now, with my account, I just have the farm checking account connected. I don't have my kids' accounts connected because they don't really pertain to the farm at all. So I don't want to connect those accounts. But I do have the farm checking account connected. So the reason why I do this in Traction is so it just makes it easier to have transactions flow in. If we can eliminate work, that's what we're all about, is to eliminate you entering unnecessary information. So we'll show how that works here in just a little bit, but this is an optional step. You don't have to connect your banks and credit cards. You can do everything manual, just like you do it in any other desktop system. We do make it easy for adding your revenue and expense accounts. Again, step number 3 is just a quick pick list of all your expenses and revenue accounts. You can add your own accounts. We don't hold you back from doing that. But again, a pain point from the past was just farmers quickly picking out common accounts and just get rolling with it, right? So we have that ability in that first 3 steps. So when you get started here, that kind of minimizes, and then you're looking at your dashboard. And so this just kind of gives you a quick look at the number of entities over here. So I've got my Coltman, Nussbaum, and Start Farm entity. And you can turn these guys off and just look at those pie charts and bar graphs just for one entity if you like. And also you can click on these as well. So this pie chart here for expenses, or revenue rather, if I click on that, this shows the income statement report for just the Start Farms. So right there is all my sales, my expenses, super quick and easy. And there's also a drill down ability that you can drill down and maybe look at that $1,700 for the Start Farm business. What was that? What was that for? If you just tap on it, it drills down and shows every single transaction that made up that repair expense account. So you can keep on deep diving any of these transactions. You just keep on clicking. We make it very easy to edit or void if you want, right down to that transaction. And so I like starting out with that because at some point, if you've got multiple businesses, you might want to combine them together on one balance sheet or one, in this case, income statement report. And so that's just as easy. Just tap on these, update report. And now you're looking at 2 entities on one report. So that right there is quite different from my experiences in the past. We did not have that ability at FarmWorks software to be able to take 2 different businesses and combine them together on a report. Literally, you had to take it to a spreadsheet and do it yourself. So we make it so much easier. And I know farms are pretty complicated now than what they were back in the day. So the fact that you can set up as many entities as you want makes it probably attractive for you. So if I go to the accounting, okay, so this is my account register. It just defaults to it. This is where all the action happens. We do have a button here called sync, the little double arrow button in the upper right corner. If I tap on that, it's going to be talking to my bank right now. And if there were any new transactions that weren't in my account register, they would appear now. And you have these little orange warning symbols on the left. So those little orange warning symbols are just letting you know that you got to fill the details in, but at least your check register is up to date. You know, you have some information here about what came in, and then we're just grabbing it from the bank. There's nothing in there that we're doing special other than what the bank gives us. But you can fill the details in this way just by clicking on these transactions and just finish out what it was that you purchased in this example. Or you could just do a manual transaction as well. So there's an add new button in the upper right corner and do an add payment. Here you can pick out your contact. And so I have a whole list of different contacts there to pick from. And we'll just pick the Eden Farmers Co-op today. The amount of the transaction, we'll just put in $5,000. And from this, we can say it was a check if it was a check and enter the check number. From this type dropdown, you have quite a few different options here. And so what we'll do here today is just do an example of doing a supply purchase because we're talking about climate today and bringing in field records. So you'll see these supply names in just a little bit, but this dropdown here is where I can pick out what chemical it was. And those stars right there are all my favorites. So those are the ones that I likely either added myself or ones that were used in climate. So for my example today, we'll just pick one out here. And it tells me how much inventory I have in for that product. And we'll say we purchased so many gallons at whatever price it was. We still had $3,800 that went somewhere else. We just hit add row and you just keep on splitting things out. So you can go to the next supply here and maybe it was a seed. We'll say that we purchased some DeKalb seed and shows us we had 4.4 bags of that in inventory right now. We're going to buy another 5 bags at that price. So we're just going to keep breaking things down. We still have $1,900 roughly that's we got to put somewhere, which we could hit save and close and exit and go back and finish this later if we want to. Or if you know where that other $1,900 went to, just keep on adding rows here and keep splitting it out. So for just the sake of time today, I know you're not going to have repair expense and buy seed on the same transaction, but just to show you a little bit how this works, I'm going to choose repair expense here. And let's say I did have some parts that I purchased. And what's really nice about this, Brian mentioned this already, but the ability to say $1,900 and pick out a piece of equipment is pretty powerful. And so Traction, you can choose the equipment. And right here, I could say, well, this tractor, this sprayer, and this planter, let's say. Actually, we'll pick out this tractor here. And I can say evenly split. I can do it super quick if I want to, or if I want to just change the numbers here and override it and put the exact amount that went to that piece of equipment, you can easily do that here in Traction. But the ability to allocate to a machine and throughout that crop year, be able to see all the expenses into that machine. And as we use them in the field operation side, driving that right back down to the field, that's where you're going to get that true margin per bushel. Memo can be added. If you had a receipt that you scan, you can drop that in here too. What's nice about all this that I'm showing you here, you can easily do this on a phone or a tablet, so you don't necessarily have to be at your desktop to do this type of work anymore. We can print checks. There's an option to save and print check if you want to print a check. No problem. We do support that. And we're going to update our inventories here. We're all done. So that transaction is complete. And yeah, so that's really what you do to enter a field record or a transaction into accounting. To show a little more on the field operations side, if I go to the upper right corner here, we can navigate around the software. So if I go to Tools and go to integrations, you'll see that I've got a couple of integrations already connected. So I do have my Climate FieldView account connected. You can choose John Deere Operations Center if you have that account as well. We also have an integration with Tax 1099. For us, this is just the start of things. So we want to continue to add other companies here and be able to connect to those and bring that information into Traction. So today we support 3 things here as far as the accounting and field data goes, and as well as all the banks and credit cards that we can flow in as well. So it's definitely a great start, and this hits most of our customers today. So if I go to field operations, and I go to, let's say, go down to my products to begin with. So these products, the ones that have the star here are the ones that I've added in Traction. These are my favorites. And so we have like over 5,000 chemicals to pick from. And so if I just display more on one page here, I keep scrolling and scrolling, or I can just start doing a search here for like Roundup, and it will show all the different flavors of Roundup here to pick from. Here you can easily pick these, add them to your list. What's nice about this in terms of products is for chemicals and seed especially, we're working with a common database, so it's got a lot of information already built in for you. So we're bringing in the EPA number, active ingredients, mode of action, all these different types of things for these products. So you don't have to add your own products. You can just pick them out from the list and add them to your favorites. We do have the reliable new product button in the upper right corner. So if there was a product here that wasn't listed for whatever reason, you could just hit new product and add it yourself. It's not a big deal. But I do have quite a few seed varieties in here, over 43,000 of them actually. So chances are your products are here to pick from. And so that just makes it super easy to kind of get rolling with it. Since we do have Climate FieldView connected, I do have all the farms and fields already in Traction. So I did not add these names in Traction. Climate helped me out here and add those for me. Now we do have the ability, just like to add into products, you can add your fields, you can draw boundaries and do all those wonderful things in Traction. But really, if you've got Climate FieldView and you're happy with those boundaries and the field name, it'd be silly to change it here. So that's the nice thing about the integration of Climate. We make it easy. We'll just pull in the boundary, the field name for you, the acres, so everything matches on your Climate account. And then when that happens, you've got this Import Queue button on the left. This is what Brian mentioned already this afternoon, but this has over 100 actually different jobs sitting in my queue to be approved or deleted. So just to be clear, we work with Climate FieldView. We want to bring in the data in from Climate in terms of field records, but we're just not going to put it to the fields without you approving that information. So this is kind of like a holding area where you can look at these jobs here, and let's say that field A6, I've got a couple green buttons here, which is why you see the import button is lit up here. So I've already mapped out my different products from Climate, so they match Traction. So these different, the very first time you do it, you'll have to take the time to pick out your Climate product name and just match it with what you got in Traction. But once you do it the first time, we've got this save product mapping feature. Makes it super easy to do your future ones moving forward. So what you got here is the ability to make changes. So there's going to be other spots to make changes. So this is where you can kind of reconcile your field records and making sure you got everything right. And if you're pleased with what you're looking at here, or if it's just good enough, we can hit the import button, and that will basically create a field record for you in Traction. And so as you work through the import queue, approving these, or if you've got garbage in here, you can just say archive it and get rid of it, because sometimes that happens to you too. You can do that here. But as you complete these and approve, they do end up in your field records area. So these are my true field records coming in. whether they're from climate or a manual field record, it doesn't really matter. It's all right here. And you can sort this by year, by crop. You can even sort your field records by, or filter rather, let's say by application or seeding. Pick out what products you're using. And apply. And there, it threw out all my field records, but kept these three because those are the three that has that specific seed variety in it. So that's a great way to find some things. You can look at some of these records right here just by clicking on them. It shows you the data so far for that one field record, the product, the equipment used, and all that good stuff is right here. Moving down here to equipment, one of the things that we're quite proud about, and these are the things that we did in FarmWorks that people really enjoyed, was having full visibility on a machine. So this particular machine here, the John Deere 8550 tractor, if you just click on it, it shows all the field records and any accounting transactions tied to that machine. So as Brian was stating today here, the operating cost would be like a repair expense, for example, which from right here, you can actually just tap on it and go right to the purchase and see what was that amount, where did it come from? You know, do I need to make a change? You can do it all right here. So you have full visibility of all the field records, all the operation costs coming in. And what we're doing here is just doing a quick calculation of your cost. In this case, my cost per acre on this machine. Now you can track it by the hour if you want to as well. When I set up my machine, I chose acre. But here we're driving this, and this number is changing throughout the crop year. So this number will go up and down just based on the expenses that you have into that machine and the number of fields that you're farming. All this information here, the field records, the equipment cost, what this all leads me to today is if I go back to the accounting and go to reports, it all ends with the Field Profit Center report. So this is probably one of the reports that most of our customers look at all the time and enjoy, because this report right here is where I can select whatever, in this case, what grower I'm working with, what crop. And I'm just going to pick out the field A2 to show you. Just click on that one field, but I could select them all at one time here. Hit apply, update. So just this one field, based on what I've done so far, which isn't a whole lot, must have did some sort of seed application, chemical. And if I keep scrolling down, right there's my true cost into that machine. Right there's that $31.94 per acre for that tractor. And that number is going to go up and down, like I said, throughout the year. There's different ways of looking at this report. I really like switching it from default cost to actual cost. And it just depends on the time of the year you're looking at this. But the default cost option for equipment is where I can say, instead of use the actual cost on that machine, I actually typed in $30 per acre. So it's using 30 on that field. So you can look at it a couple of different ways in terms of the equipment costs on a field. You can do a default for maybe the beginning of the year because maybe you haven't recorded many field records yet or allocated many expenses to a machine. You're trying to get a true picture of your costs into a field. But as you proceed throughout the year, you definitely want to do the actual equipment costs and get that information. So that's the main points I wanted to show today in terms of the software. And I think that hits a lot of the accounting and field operations. There's bills and invoices that our customers just really enjoy. One of the cool things you can do in Traction is set up land agreements for fields. And so those land agreements happen in field operations, for example. So I've got quite a few land agreements set up here, so I could just pick out one here to look at. But these land agreements are kind of nice because you can set them up for each one of your landlords and keep track of like maybe a sharecrop situation or some custom work where you're going to be billing that landlord for inputs. So this makes it super, super nice to do that. And you can create however you want to do it, slice and dice it the way you want. But where I'm getting at with with this tool here to set up land agreements, execute your climate FieldView field records, all that can kick into the invoicing tool for you. From start to finish, you can go right to the accounting. And this is probably one of my favorite parts of the software, is from right here, you can do a new invoice. And we'll just pick out Doug Wilson here. And you can customize the invoice a lot of different ways, give you a lot of flexibility here. But instead of actually trying to calculate these numbers yourself on a spreadsheet, for example, you can just go right to bill landlord here, and you can just pick out those records to be included on that invoice. And so based on those operations and your land agreement, all that stuff just flows right into here, and you can delete them, you can change, certain products, but you kind of see where I'm going with this. You can basically do all your, from start to finish, from field record keeping, kick it to the invoice tool, send it right out to the landlord, and you're all done. And I can tell you right now, FarmWorks was not that easy. It was not easy to do. So we spent a lot of time with that invoicing tool, especially if you're dealing with this field data, whether it's from climate or some other source. But we're quite happy the way that's working today. I think I'm going to pause it for maybe just a few minutes here and just open up for any kind of questions.
I didn't see anything yet come through the chat, but I think this is the moment to raise questions. So whoever may have one, just drop in the chat, and maybe as you're pausing, thank you for the demo. I'm always impressed how easy Traction really is. Something as dry as accounting. I'm sorry, I studied it, but it's still dry. Can be quite engaging and easy if you run through it. So thank you, Brian, and also thank you, Brian, for the couple of testimonials and use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just our pricing. There's more information on pricing on our website at TractionAg.com. But we kind of talked about the basic level of accounting today. You can start off really basic with $950, get your feet wet. You can add on more functionality to it. So it just really depends what level. I guess it really depends. Every farmer's different. But if you've got Climate FieldView, and let's say you're using QuickBooks today, which we have a lot of farmers that had that situation in the past and switched to us, you're probably going to start with the plus level because you've got Climate FieldView. And so that plus level gives you the connection, gives you the accounting, gives you a good starting point. So to kind of sum it up, I guess our presentation today, I do have 3 key takeaways. So my first key takeaway is, this system makes it easy to reconcile your field records. So as I mentioned, that import queue that we've been talking about today gives you that opportunity to make some changes to your field records, get it in so it's all working for you. The second thing is the field profit center reports, the fields and the crops. Tracking your true cost to the fields is challenging. And so that's our #1 goal, is to be the accounting first software system. It all starts with the accounting, but driving those numbers back to your fields and crops is really key for any operation. And as we deal with these inputs and things, that inventory is a challenge, and tracking your crops, things that you're trying to market, having a great way to look at all that information in one place is difficult. And so we like to think that we're trying to make that easier for you with this last key takeaway, being able to give you the up-to-date information on inventory that you need to make better decisions. And also just to summarize our connection with Climate FieldView, it is one directional. So we're not sending any information to your Climate FieldView account. We're just bringing down your field names, your boundaries in your product summary data, which is your field records. We're bringing that into Traction. And so we're just using that information. We're not sending anything to Climate FieldView, though we are looking at ways to maybe do something more on those lines in the future. And so that would be, we didn't talk about the agronomy much today, but we do have an agronomy add-on that does soil sampling and things and work with your soil labs to create recommendations. So possibly down the road, you know, there's ways that we could maybe send information up to your Climate account in the future. And for anyone who, you know, is new to Traction, I've always suggested just start a trial, kick one off. It's a free 30-day trial. And once you do that, our team will be in contact with you from the very beginning to help you get up and going with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And in the meanwhile, Marissa has a question come through, or there's a question come through in the chat from Marissa asking if there's an easy capability to do easy split, if there's any capability to do easy splits within an operation that isn't a landlord. So she has customers ask for ways to keep track of splits between brothers, dad, grandpas, etc. that farm together on the same operation. Not sure we missed that, but yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, like family members farming together where you got splits you have to account for. Yeah, so yeah, that land agreement area would probably be the best place to do that. So we can use that tool to get what you need done. Yep. And, you know, in that, the other situation is, you know, if you have another, like a son or daughter coming into the operation, they might have to set up, or you might want to set up their own entity and keep something separate from a financial standpoint. And so, again, going back to those entities, you can easily do that for that son or daughter coming into the operation. So that way it keeps all their information separate from your, you know, farm information today. So it's a great bridge.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, there's no other question in the chat. I have one for you because I'm always after a free 30-day trial. Can you share with us what is included in that trial? So what are the different functionalities that you can test out during that period?
Yeah, so the 30-day trial, it gives you full access to everything. So we don't hold back, other than you cannot do payroll. So payroll is the only piece we don't let people try for free, only because it's like I said, it's a complete end-to-end solution. So it ties into your bank and it takes the information on your bank, your tax liabilities, and takes care of all that for you. So it's very hard to do a trial on payroll, but we can do a video conference with you if you want to see it closer. But other than that, yeah, I'd say actually summertime is a great time to start trials, because if you're trying to think about, you know, maybe what do I do come January 1st, that is the big day that should be circled on your calendar. Now's the time to start practicing, playing with it, and get ready for January 1st. And we can give you really as much time as you want in Traction to kind of get your feet wet and get familiar with it, so you get ready for maybe making a switch come the end of the year.
Okay, that's awesome. That's always good to hear that there's really everything at your fingertips during that period. As you talked about making that switch, maybe that's a question for Brian Watkins, as I think you made that switch yourself. Can you share your experience on how the Traction team helped you manage through that process of getting set up and moving from, I think you used FarmWorks, I believe, and then moved into Traction?
Yeah, so I mean, that's an excellent question, because I mean, if there's probably nothing that strikes more fear than having to go from a long time one accounting system to another one, right? And it was easier than I expected, because I had lots of fears. But one of the things that Traction does is they bring a lot of support to the process. So any of these large lists of vendors and lists of equipment, things that you know would take a long time to get entered in, they basically took care of that for us. And, part of it is, can we get them in a digital format? It was easy to get farms fields into the system. I actually didn't connect it via Climate. I had my own software that SMS was where we had our field boundaries that we felt like are the truth. And so we used that, but again, it was very simple. Upload that shape file of our boundaries and they were in, right? And so I'm not going to say it's nothing, because it's not. It's a big deal, but there was a lot of support, and it went pretty smooth, and we were able to go. I mean, I would say we started the process mid-December, maybe, in order to be up and running by January, and it wasn't like a full-time job. And we made it. We got there. There's some balances. You got to get your books closed out and bring new balances in. There's some stuff involved, but again, their program was user friendly enough that it wasn't that big a deal to get those balances in either. And so, no, I was very pleased with how that all went.
That's great to hear. Always good to know that there is a helpful support team that can work with you through the process and make things easy to then get set up and switch as seamless as it can be.
Right.
Looking at the time, we're about up. I don't know, Brian, if you want to have any closing words. Otherwise, I'll close with some housekeeping and then move us over to the next session. But before I do so and potentially pass it over to you, I want to just say thank you everybody for listening in, and obviously both of you for coming in, sharing what Traction is, what it can do, and how you use it also in your operation. So big thank you from my side.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, appreciate it.
Sure.